Del Toro Jr. told the judge that he was afraid for his life. He testified that he saw his father put his hand into his pocket and that he knew his father was reaching for his gun. Del Toro says he pulled his own gun out for protection, but never meant to shoot it, and that he accidentally shot his mother. The judge ruled it would be up to the jury to decide if Del Toro Jr. accidentally shot his mother in self-defense or not. He faces a sentence of 10 years in prison if convicted. Still with us, criminal defense attorney Ashley Bargainquest. Ashley, all right, this one is just such a tragic case. We were out there covering it when it was going to start. This was last week, and we had been talking with some people on the ground out there. And, you know, from the defendant's perspective, he has not been willing to take this plea offer. And one of the things that we heard is because he said even in the beginning, he accidentally kind of elbowed his father. That wasn't even something that he meant to do. And so he wants to stand his ground on this self-defense case. He didn't really have a stand your ground hearing, but he wants to stand your ground on this and see what happens. What are your thoughts on him considering this plea deal? So far, he hasn't been willing to accept it.
Well, it's a really hard one, right? He has been very consistent from the beginning that this was all accidental. I think it's very clear that he and his father got into a physical altercation, that he had been losing that physical altercation, and the idea that he was afraid that his father was, pulling out a firearm doesn't seem unreasonable to me, right? This is a case that is in fact a great trial case. It does seem to be a self-defense, and I think that there is reasonable doubt. However, anytime you go to trial, there is always a risk, right? You are putting your life into the hands of a jury, and of course your attorney who's helping you, and you never know what's going to come out. You never know how it's going to come out. And so getting a probation offer is an extraordinarily good outcome, but it does mean that he would be taking a plea, that he would have a conviction. And so the question then becomes, what are the collateral consequences of that plea? 10 years is a very long time. And yes, he's possibly facing 10 years in prison, but sentencing would be an entirely different issue if he was convicted on this. And that's a big if. Like I said, this is a good trial case. So you're looking at what would an aggravated assault conviction mean for him, and what would 10 years on probation mean for him. He could always ask for early termination at different times. He could always petition, during that period to have conditions modified or have it, like I said, ended early. But 10 years on probation is something he really has to look at. But then again, it's 10 years on probation that you have in hand versus a potential up to 10-year sentence if that jury trial doesn't go the way that you think. So I completely understand why he is really taking time to think about this and really looking at it, because he's confident that he would win at trial, but it's always some level of rolling the dice.
Yeah, Ashley, I'm so glad
a bird in
that
hand
you
versus two in the bush.
Explained it like that, because we could analyze all day what seems better, but when we're talking about a conviction, we can't downplay the fact that that impacts his right to carry firearms at times, to vote, to get a job in some situations. So he's got to think about what the next 10 years will look like if he accepts this. But tell me what this says to you about the prosecution's belief in their own case, if they're willing to plead it down to probation only. And should they make a move if they don't think that this is a case that someone deserves to serve 10 years for? Should they go to trial?
I mean, I think that is a great point. I think that the fact that the prosecution is willing to take this down to an aggravated assault shows what they think actually happened here. And I think the fact that they are just doing this as probation, right? I don't know if they're asking for any custodial time in that probation or if it's simply, just terms of probation. So, without the exact nitty-gritty, you don't know. But the fact that they are willing and think that it would serve justice to have this just be an aggravated assault, I believe shows that they don't think that this was, murder beyond a reasonable doubt, that this was, in fact, a case that they think could be served this way. And I think that a prosecutor should really take a look at this, right? If they're willing to plead it down to probation, just an aggravated assault because a firearm was involved, why would they take it all the way to trial? Why would they expose this man to 10 years in custody if they believe probation would serve justice here? I think it's a very good point that you make.
Yeah, it is. So we'll have to see what happens in this case. But yeah, just all around, really just a tragedy here. All right, Ashley, thank you so much for your insight on that case. But coming up, we're going to have more from the Lori Shaver trial. That's taking place also in Florida. We'll get more into that when we come back. You're watching Court TV.